Hello everyone and welcome to another DC miniature game battle report. DC Universe, I never remember what they called us because they rebranded it to like DC Multiverse or whatever. Either way, Joker's Funhouse has been in Gotham for quite long enough, so it's time to get rid of it for a new table setup. And what better way to do that than to expand into the greater DC Universe and say, hey, have a fight here and just wreck the joint. So we're doing scenario 1 from the hardback release rulebook, which is Artifacts. But we can go over the specifics of that once we take a look at the two teams taking part today. So here is the good guys team taking part this time, the Justice League. So from left to right we have the Flash, of course, then we have Green Lantern, we have Shazam, and we have Wonder Woman. Now Shazam is a mastermind, so in the bag of dice that are deciding who's going to be taking first activation each turn, he puts in an extra one for this side and removes one for the enemy. And much like the last time we played this, which granted was a little while ago now, once again going to be using D12s just to mark how much power they have, just to reduce the number of dice on the table to make it easier to see. And here are the 4 miniatures making up the 50 power levels of the villains. I don't know what to call them really because it's such an eclectic mix. Going from left to right we have the Red Death, the fusion of the Flash and Batman, making him evil. We have Black Adam, of course, we have Sinestro, and then we have Atrocitus. So we have a Red Lantern, Yellow Lantern, and a Green Lantern on the good guy side, so it'll be a little bit interesting to see how they square up. There is a new Black Adam miniature, hasn't been shipped yet, so no idea about his stats or anything like that, but getting him eventually, night models, fingers crossed. So this is the villain squad. Atrocitus, never used him before, so it'll be new to see him. I think he's a glass cannon. He also gets more power, or stronger, the closer to death he is, but he has a rule called Fury, which I think just means you can lower your defense by however much of the Fury you have, and then you get that much extra attack. So he can, like I say, he can make himself very glass cannon. So here we are at deployment. Deployment for this scenario is a 6x6 in 2 of the corners. The Justice League are down here in the bottom left, and you can see they've had their power allocated, and it didn't work out, or this wasn't on purpose, but while they're all healthy they all actually have 9 power each, so it's easy to remember at least. And then the villains, it's awkward that they're in this corner over here, but that's only going to matter for the first turn, and they've got a variety of power, Sinestro and Black Adam being the strongest. So the way artifacts work is there's 3 little markers, so there's one there in front of that stall, one directly in the middle of the map that's a different colour, and then one over in the corner over here. It's essentially just take and hold. You get 1 victory point for having the most models within 4 inches of one of the markers. You get 1 victory point if you have majority at the end of a turn. And you get 1 victory point for every person taken out of the game. So all that remains to be seen is to shake the bag and see who's getting first turn in battle round 1. And it is more likely to be the Justice League. They're on blue and the villains are on red. Oh, never mind, I'll shut up then. It's the villains taking first activation. So evil Bruce Wayne, the Red Death, got the game started, and he is a speedster and has agile, so he can do 2 movement actions in his turn. He spent 2 of his starting power to move 15 inches, which put him roughly there-ish, and then he did 1 more power to move 10, which is his base speed, and move over here. Now he also has phase shift, so he can just go through scenery. So he ended up there on one of the artifacts, and he banked 5 power for defense. The Flash decided he would activate first for the Justice League, and he went pretty much all out. He spent 2 first of all to do his once per game hyperspeed, which is a 20-inch move, and you also get +1 to your defenses, all your defenses for the turn. So 20 inches, zoomed along here. He's on the other side of this tree here. We'll come around here, which is actually just within 4 of the artifact there, countering Red Death being there. He then spent 5 on Supermass Critical Punch, which is his other once per game. He overloaded it for an additional power to make it easier to land. Red Death spent 1 power to buff his physical defense by 2, but it was not enough. It got through for 4 damage and also pushed him back 3 into the building here, but he's not big enough to have destroyed it. Oh, and the Flash is banking 1 power, because if you aren't familiar, speedsters have a rule called Too Tired, where if they ever have no power left, they get utterly exhausted and lose defense. Sinestro was next up. He spent 3 to fly, although his fly speed is only 13 inches, which put him exactly there. So he's not going to get into the fray this turn, unfortunately, because he can't move again. So he's just going to bank that 7 power and cause some trouble, possibly in the centre, next turn. Wonder Woman activated and spent 2 to move her max speed of 9, which put her roughly there-ish, and then she spent 3 on Super Jump, which is a 12-inch displacement, to go whoop and smash down on the floor there, banking 4 power and is well within 4 of that artifact right there. Atrocitus activated and spent 3 to fly. He's a little bit slower. His fly speed is 12 inches, so that put him just at the base of the Ferris wheel back there, also banking 4 power. Shazam activated, and conversely, compared to everyone else on the table, he has an above average fly speed, so he spent 3 to fly 15, 16? Above average for sure, I think it was 16, which put him on top of the attraction there, 6 power banked, but within 4 of the central artifact. Black Adam was up last for the villains, and he only flies 13, and it was 16 for Shazam, incidentally double checked. So he spent 3 and flew his 13 down to there, not close enough to make a difference this battle round. Similarly, for the final activation of battle round 1, Green Lantern, he just flew forwards his 12, and it plopped him right there, so the fighting is not going to start proper until battle round 2. So at the end of battle round 1, just to make things official, the good guys have 2 of the artifacts claimed. Wonder Woman is claiming this one over here by being within 4. Shazam is claiming this one, so that's 2 victory points plus a third for majority, so they got 3 victory points that turn. This one is a draw down here between Red Death and the Flash, so no points scored there at all. Red Death's the only one who took damage in battle round 1 due to the Flash burning his once per game attack, and he took 4 damage, but he has regeneration 1, so he'll be healing 1 of that back. As we go into battle round 2, I don't have the bag handy, so we'll open up battle round 2 by drawing from the bag to see who goes first. Top of battle round 2, everyone's had their power restored. It's exactly the same as in the battle round 1 state was, because nobody got damaged enough to either lose or gain power. We have the bag. Let's see. Again, it should very, very likely be the good guys. I don't believe it. It's not. The villains go first, but that's the only other counter of theirs in the bag, which means the Justice League get first turn for the rest of the game. So battle round 2, and the table cleanup has already begun. Black Adam activated. He spent 2 of his 10 power to move forwards. His medium distance, which was 7, so he's pretty slow if he's not flying. But that was enough to get him on the far side of the Ferris wheel. He spent 3 power to pick it up and throw it. Even though it was so huge, counting it as just size 5 because it's a lot of like joined together metal. It's not like a thick building or anything, or a castle, as other like size 6 structures are classed as. So he picked that up, chucked it at Shazam. He issued 3 damage of it to the thing he was standing on. Shazam made his agility roll though and took no damage from it, but the building itself it was thrown into was exploded, so he dropped down there. He then tried to fire a lightning bolt, which you're not allowed to overload, for 2 power, but Shazam took it to the chest and took no damage. And then finally he spent 1 power on reality manipulation, where the target has to pass a willpower roll or he's not allowed to spend power to overload anything. Shazam passed his willpower roll. He's got willpower 11. That's on par with Batman. So Shazam just took a beating from Black Adam and it didn't do anything. So Green Lantern activated for the good guys first in battle round 2. He spent 3 to fly over here. He then spent 3 to do his once per game Force of Will, which is a 4-inch buff bubble. Sadly he couldn't position himself where he would catch Wonder Woman as well, so he settled for being close to the middle artifact. So he and Shazam now have +1 attack, +1 defense, and plus to all defenses, and +1 speed, which is just an extra inch of movement until the end of the turn. He had 3 power left after all that. He spent 2 of it on offensive construct. He didn't do it on Black Adam because Black Adam has resistance to physical too, so he just reduced all the damage. So he did it on Atrocitus instead, who has resistance to physical attacks 1, which means unless it crits, the most he could do is 2 damage reduced to 1, and that's exactly what happened. His physical resistance lowered the damage taken to that. If it critted, it would have been 3 damage down to 2, so Atrocitus didn't bother buffing his defense because that was not worth it for such a paltry amount of damage. All said and done, Green Lantern has banked 1 power for defense. The Red Death activated and he spent 1, which for a speedster is a lot of inches. He gets 10 inches to play with, which put him more than enough, close enough rather, to the Flash that he could then spend 2 to do the Black Bats, which is anyone within 3 of him gets stunned 2, which is basically losing 2 power. He just sat, because if you aren't aware, the Red Death can steal the speed force out of people. So that's what he does. It's very, very annoying. The Flash just loses 2 power just like that. He then only had 5 left, so he couldn't overload it, and it meant that if he spent all 5, he'd get too tired. So he's -1 to all defenses. But this Bruce is a gambling man, I guess, because he spent all 5 on his super mass critical punch once per game. He did it on the Flash, and the Flash buffed his physical defense. He really shouldn't have, because I forgot, this is the Flash that for some reason just has ridiculously good physical and energy defense. He's got 18 for both. So really you need to overload to try and get through that, and the Red Death didn't. He rolled okay, got an 11 on the 2d8s, plus his attack, put it at like 17. So no damage, and now he is vulnerable. He did steal some of the Flash's power though, 3 in total technically, 2 to the Black Bats and 1 to him buffing his physical defense. Shazam activated, he spent 2 to move into base to base with Black Adam, then he spent 3 and then overloaded it with 4 to attempt to grab and throw. Black Adam spent his 1 remaining power to buff his physical defense to try and make that harder to achieve. However, with the added bonus from Green Lantern's buff, it was enough. So Shazam picked him up, chucked him at Atrocitus, and you can see the outcome of the damage there. Black Adam, he takes damage equal to the thrower's strength -1. However, he is resistant to physical, and the rulebook says it counts as a physical attack. So he reduces damage down to down by 2 from physical attacks. So Shazam is strength 5 would become 4, and then he reduces it to 2. Atrocitus, now the rulebook does not say that the person having scenery or a person thrown into them counts as physical damage, although you'd think it would. It doesn't say it does. So Atrocitus took the 2 full damage from Black Adam being size 2 and did not reduce it with his physical resistance. Then, of his 4 power he had left, Shazam spent 3 of it to fire a Zeus Bolt, which you're not allowed to overload anyway, at Atrocitus, who didn't buff his physical defense, and he really should have, because it only got through by 1, and it hit him for 3 damage, for a total of 5. Atrocitus was next up for the villains, and I think at the start of the game I mentioned he can burn Rage to get stronger. I was confusing that with Fury. Rage is what happens if you wake up from knockout, you get a bunch of bonus power. Fury is the role he used now, which is a once per game. For the rest of the turn you lose 3 from all your defense types, which is really bad. But you gain 3 power to spend, so I put him at 10. You gain +1 damage on all your attacks, and +2 to your attack stat, which makes attacks easier to land if you aren't aware. So he spent 2 power of that 3 free energy he got to move into base to base with Green Lantern. Then he did his once per game Vengeance Blow. He overloaded it. Green Lantern spent his last power to buff his physical defense, and he was getting a buff from Force of Will as well, and that was not nearly enough. It easily got through. 4 damage base, but because of the Fury, increased it to 5 damage, which is pretty massive. I forgot to mention, but from Shazam's turn, Atrocitus is in his pale zone, which, if you aren't aware, is kind of like the middle. You go from healthy to pale to blue. So he is actually a little bit stronger now. He starts with an attack debuff that goes away as he's closer to death. So he dealt a massive blow there. He has a glass cannon now, and he's 2 away from going into his blue zone, which is bad for him, but he hurt Green Lantern bad. Wonder Woman activated and spent 2 of her power to run 9 inches into base to base with Atrocitus. She then spent 4, 3 plus 1 for overloaded throw attempt. He buffed his physical defense, what little of it there was, with a negative, just on the off chance. It did not make a difference. She picked him up and chucked him away into Black Adam. So her strength is 5, it gets reduced to 4 damage, but then Atrocitus reduces that again by 1, so he took 3. That was enough to put him in his pale zone. So he has to do a stamina roll or get knocked out. He's got a massive stamina of 12 though, and he passed it just with a roll of 12. So you need to get equal to or lower than. So he is still conscious, he's hurt though. And he will also have to do a knockout check at the end of the turn again, I think, because you have to do it instantly and then also at the end. Black Adam was knocked over because he got chucked earlier, so it was hard for him to dodge, so he took the full damage from Atrocitus, and Atrocitus is size 3. Now, I almost called her Black Widow there. Wonder Woman's turn is not over yet, just wanted to show this part on camera. She's spending her last 3 power to super jump all the way back to just within 4 of this. I'll measure it correctly in a second, so that she's also still claiming that. That was a very effective turn. Final activation for the villains this turn was Sinestro. He spent 3 power to fly down here to help out Red Death. They now have majority on this artifact. He then spent 4 up to 5 on his once per game Fear Overwhelming, and he used it on the Flash. He also made use of his passive, which lets him choose whether or not to make an attack energy or mental. He made it mental because this Flash does not have good mental defense compared to his physical and energy. So there was no... Also, you can't buff you can buff your mental defense, but it wouldn't have mattered. It's just magical defense you can't buff. Either way, the Flash took 4 damage from that, and Sinestro banked 2 power. So the Flash was the final activation for the turn, and he decided to get out of there. I guess the fear effect had more of an influence on him than he realised. He did an overloaded charge, which has range 4, even though it's a physical attack, on Red Death, whose defences are lowered because he's too tired currently. It smacked him, pushes him back for 3 into this building again, and dealt 2 damage. He then spent 2 to run away 15 inches, and he ended up right over here between Green Lantern and Wonder Woman, with 1 power remaining. Not that it mattered, because he was the final activation. So at the end of Battle Round 2, the Flash, Red Death, and Black Adam all heal 1 damage, because they all have Regeneration 1. Atrocitus stayed conscious with exactly a 12 roll again, so he is still very much awake. Will have a attempt at a turn, and is very angry and very strong now. I think all his debuffs are gone, and he gets extra power now as well, 1 extra power. But the Justice League are still holding on to a very comfortable lead. The villains hold this artifact for their first victory point, but Justice League, thanks to these two, hold that one, and Wonder Woman holds that one, so they gain 2. 1 for each of them, plus 1 more for majority. So as we go into Battle Round 3, I think it's 6 playing 1. So here we are at the top of turn 3. Power has been allocated again, and Atrocitus has +1, so that's why he's now got 8 to start with rather than 7. And it is time to see... Oh wait, we don't even need to make a big show of this. We know literally for the rest of the game it's the Justice League going first, because it's just their dice left in the bag, so they are indeed getting first activation this turn. So Battle Round 3 got started proper with Shazam. He didn't move, he spent all his power on his 2 once per games that he has available to him. So he started with the power of Shazam, which is a 5 power. He overloaded it for 6 to roll the extra die to guarantee it attacked. It's an explosive attack that goes after magic defense. He was going to do it on Atrocitus, but it causes a 5-inch explosion, which would have caught the Flash and Green Arrow, and it hits friends and foes. So instead he targeted Black Adam. Although it turns out this Black Adam has really, really bad magic defense. He's like magic defense 12. I thought magic was his whole shtick. Why is he weak to it? Either way, so he did it on Black Adam. The roll got through easily. It does 4 damage and then does a 5-inch explosion. Targets pass an agility roll to take half damage, or they take the full explosion damage. Atrocitus did not pass his agility roll. He also took 4, so they worked out for the best. He spent his last 3 power on his other once per game, which is called Solomon's Wisdom. You target an enemy, they have to do a willpower roll, or they lose 3 power and I think 2 or 3 inches off their movement. He tried that on Atrocitus, but he passed the roll. So Black Adam had had quite enough of getting thrown around, people thrown into him, getting hit, etc. He spent 1 to walk 4 inches. He just strutted right into the middle there, and then he spent 5 on his once per game Final Lightning, where he calls down a gigantic lightning bolt on himself, and it spreads out in a burst of 3 inches. And it hits everyone automatically. They have to do an agility roll or take half damage rounded down. And unfortunately, everybody was very, very bad at trying to pass agility rolls. They all rolled super high. So the Flash, 5 damage. Green Lantern, 5 damage. Oh, it counts as magic damage incidentally as well. Shazam, 5 damage. He just did 15 damage to the heroes. Now, unfortunately, Atrocitus is also in that range. He also took 5 damage and is now dead. Black Adam let his temper get the best of him, and that may have cost him the game there, although he did do a lot of work. Green Lantern picked himself up from the rubble after Final Lightning smacked him upside the head. He decided to use his once per game Green Gatling, where he cracks out the Gatling gun and shoots it. He fired at Black Adam, who did buff his energy defense because it's an energy based attack. Although I just remembered Green Lantern actually could have made use of his passive, where for 1 attack in a turn he can add on his willpower rather than his attack, which would change things because that would mean that the Green Gatling got through. It wouldn't change what happened after, so actually it will do damage. I forgot he could do that. Let me just see what the attack was called. It's called Power of Will. You use your willpower instead of attack, because his attack has been reduced to 5 now that he's hurt, whereas his willpower is 12 because he failed the roll to get through by 1. I remember that specifically. So actually, Black Adam is going to take 5 damage reduced to 4 because he reduced his energy damage by 1. So he's going to take 4 damage. He then spent his 3 remaining power to do his blunt instrument, where you can do kind of like a range 4 pick up and throw, but that did not get through by a lot. So that still hasn't happened, but Black Adam is going to take a bit more damage. Sinestro activated, spent 1 to move forward to 4, such that he is still within 4 of the back artifact here. He then did a once per turn Yellow Blast on Shazam. He overloaded it as well. It's got Explosive 3 on it. It does 3 damage base, but Shazam lowers energy attacks by 1, so it did 2. And the explosion spread, and unfortunately also hit Black Adam, although I just realised he reduces energy damage. He passed his agility roll, which is why it's 1 damage, not 3. But he reduces energy damage by 1, so actually he did take nothing from that. Green Lantern, on the other hand, he passed his agility roll 3, halved his 1.5, but then you round down, so he took 1 damage. Wonder Woman activated next. She walked up for 5, I think it is, her base speed. Yeah, 5 and then 9 is her max. So she moved up over there, and then she did her Fury of the Amazons once per game, which is a burst around her for 2 or 3 inches. She positioned herself such that she was only hitting Black Adam and not the Flash. It's a magic-based one, which, as previously discussed, Black Adam is super weak to for some reason. It got through his paltry defense for 5 damage. It sapped 2 of his power as well. But unfortunately, it left her with 2 power, so that wasn't enough to super jump back. So no one's currently claiming this, and also not enough for her to try and finish off Black Adam, because Black Adam has 1 HP remaining. The Red Death spent 2 to shoot down the table to go after the weakest link down here, which is Green Lantern currently, who I hope I've not accidentally called Green Arrow at some point. He tried to do an overloaded charge against him for 3 power, and did not roll well. It was a 2-1-1 on the overloaded die. So then he spent 3 on just his combo strike, sapping all his power, so yes, he's too tired yet again, but he likes to live dangerously. That did get through for 2 damage, which put Green Lantern in his blue zone. He passed his willpower roll to stay conscious. I also forgot to mention it, but Black Adam also passed his. So it's over to the Flash to end the turn. So the Flash had one simple goal. We had to do 1 damage to Black Adam, which was much harder than it should have been. He did his other once per game, which is called bolts, which is he's essentially firing like bolts of Speed Force lightning. That did not get through his energy defense. He also did spend his last power to buff that. So when that failed, he decided to try just a charge. He overloaded that, and it got through. Now, the important thing about charge is it does 2 damage base, which is how much Black Adam reduces physical damage by. So it needed a crit, so that's why he was overloading it. And luckily, the overload happened. To get a crit, you just have to have 2 dice matching. So for instance, there's the roll. There was 2 3s, so it counts as a crit. So it did 3 damage. He reduces it by 2. He takes 1, and that is enough that Black Adam is gone. And he has 2 power left. He's spending 1 of it just to make sure he's within 4 of this, so that he can claim this artifact as well. That's basically game, although we might just play a little bit of turn 4 out just to see the slaughter. I'm not sure yet. So at the end of battle round 3, obviously things are well and truly in the Justice League's pocket now. They hold that back artifact, they hold the middle one because it's 2 versus 1, and they have majority for 3. They only get 1 extra victory point for taking out Black Adam, because Black Adam took out Atrocitus, so that will not give a victory point to the Justice League because they didn't take someone out, I think. So that's how we're playing that. It still puts them insurmountably ahead with how many turns are left. I mean, Sinestro isn't hurt at all. Red Death, he's healed 1, so is the Flash. They're not doing too badly, it's just they can't hold majority now, so I don't know. We'll play out a little bit of turn 4 just to see what happens, but I think if the Red Death gets kind of beaten up, there's absolutely no chance for them now. So just to keep things official, here's the top of turn 4. Everyone's generated their power. Green Lantern's generating less because he's so close to unconsciousness, and we know from the bag, we know it's the Justice League because it's only their dice in here, so they'll be getting first whack at the Red Death. So what is going to definitely be the final turn in a game that normally lasts 6. Shazam activated first. He spent 1 to walk right next to Red Death. Then he did a pick up, grab and throw. Overloaded it to try and make it land. Red Death buffed his physical defense, but it was not enough, so he got chucked over here into this building. He's getting chucked into a lot, or pushed into a lot of buildings. 5 damage reduced to 4, and then Shazam fired a Zeus bolt at him for 2 power. It got through his energy defense, which is his weakest defense, for 3 more damage. That puts him at 6 health remaining, I think, just below half. And Shazam banked 2 because he can't fire any more than 1 Zeus bolt a turn. So the Red Death activated. He spent 1 to move up to 10. He moved amongst the 3 heroes there. Spent 2 on Black Bats to steal 2 power from all of them, or sap 2 power. So they all lost 2. And then he spent 2 on his hyper speed, because he hadn't used his yet, just the Flash had, which gives him 20 inches. And he zapped himself instantly all the way over this end of the table right there. So looking at things as they stand, yes, Sinestro still has to go. At best he could go over here, but he'll still be outnumbered. If he takes out Green Lantern, Shazam and Wonder Woman can still be there. Technically he might be able to make it a draw if he moves close enough, kills Green Lantern and then throws Shazam. That would require a lot of dice to go right. That would still create a draw there. They'd still gain 1 there, and I think it's currently 10 victory points to 2. So they have no chance, and now that the Red Death has ran away over here to just secure this back artifact, or I guess at the end of if we ended the turn right now, they'd still gain 1 for that to put them at 3, but they would go up another 3 to 13. So no matter which way you cut it, the heroes have taken the victory this time around. I feel like the turning point was Black Adam not doing any damage, picking up the Ferris wheel and chucking it at Shazam. It would have done, what, 5 damage to him? It might have made a difference in the long run. It was very, very unlucky it didn't even do anything, but he passed his agility roll, so what can you do? Always fun just to crack out the DC Universe miniature game now and then, just to destroy a table. I don't know, you don't quite get the same feeling in Crisis Protocol with stuff getting wrecked as you do in this game. It feels like they're, like if you mentally imagine like when he did Final Lightning on everybody, that would look awesome. It'd be like the intro to DC Online, the MMORPG. He does that in the intro to Flash, I want to say. It's been a while. Anywho, hopefully we will see some new releases for this game soon. I did order the new Black Adam, the new Saint Hope, is that his name? The Blue Lantern, and all that stuff, but they haven't shipped yet. But the current Black Adam is okay. I'm hoping that the new one, though, on the larger base, isn't just more impressive looking. I hope he's actually a little bit tougher as well. But I guess we'll see. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Be back in the future for something else. Until then, ta-ta for now.